And I started a recording for everybody.
Okay, perfect. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, members and guests of the National E-Extension Project Team, Community, Local, and Regional Food Systems, to our quarterly open forum. This open forum is being recorded, as Kathleen just said, and it will be shared on our listserv and on our website and to our Facebook page. I'm Katie Wright. I provide media outreach and administrative services for our project team, Community, Local, and Regional Food Systems, which is led by Dr. Kathleen Leong. Dr. Leong is a W.K. Kellogg Distinguished Professor of Sustainable Agriculture and the Director of the Center for Environmental Farming Systems in the College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. Dr. Leong, she's going to present a little bit later after our main presentations. So for those of you who may not know, E-Extension is part of the Cooperative Extension System and is an educational partner with about 50 land-grant universities in the United States. The National E-Extension Project teams are multi-institutional, multi-state, and multidisciplinary, bringing the best of the best educational resources to the public. Our CLRFS, National E-Extension Project Team goal is to put knowledge to action. We provide resource materials, share training opportunities, and foster peer interactions for extension educators, community-based practitioners, and individuals involved in work related to building sustainable, equitable, and just food systems. We're comprised of over 450 extension professionals, university researchers, and food system practitioners from across the country. Currently, our primary resources for members are the listserv and quarterly open forums. We also have working groups, some of which have developed into their own entities, such as the economics group and the racial equity group. And finally, we have our Facebook page, our Facebook group and website. The website is hosted by E-Extension, and it's a constant work in progress, and I would like to encourage everyone to contact me with content. I can upload research results or link to your projects and pages. I'm always looking for good photos. This is a huge resource available to E-Extension members. And in fact, we had such a good response from our call for presenters for this forum that we intend to share today's presenters' projects, as well as those for whom we did not have room on the open forum, along with the website recording. Anyway, it's been some time since our last open forum. We've not had an open forum since December 2019 due to the pandemic. And since then, we've seen food systems impacted on a global level. And in response, we've seen many virtual events, websites, and other research and resources come through our listserv.
Okay.
So we decided this would be a great opportunity for our membership and guests to learn about and share best practices, newer revised programs, and new and ongoing challenges in food systems work during this pandemic.
15th is when early voting starts. I'm not 100% sure when.
There we go. Okay. All right. So, whoops. We're happy to have with us today 8 food system professionals who will share about their projects. We have Katie King and Kristen Huska, both are Nebraska Extension educators. Landa, okay, I didn't do it right. Nwadike from Kansas State University and University of Missouri Extension. Reagan Emmons from Utah State University. Sue Beckwith from the Center for Local Foods, Texas Center for Local Foods. Laura Loffer from North Carolina Cooperative Extension, Kirsten Conrad from Virginia Cooperative Extension, and finally, Jeff O'Hara from USDA Agricultural Marketing Service. Welcome, presenters. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will get started now with Katie King.
Thanks, Katie, and thanks, Kathleen, as well. I'm excited to be here to share and also to learn from everybody else here. So as Katie mentioned, I'm a regional foods extension educator for the University of Nebraska. And my region of service is around the Lincoln and Omaha metro areas. And I focus a lot on local and regional food production, promotion, giving farmer development, and build a stronger food system. So I'm going to focus on a couple of programs that we've had, that we've created as a result of the pandemic. And I'm sharing this on behalf of the bigger team. So by no means am I completely responsible for all of these projects. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, and you could go to the next slide, please, is a program called Food Chat. And so as the pandemic and its impacts became a realization earlier this year in March, we teamed up with one of our existing partners, the Nebraska Food Council, to host an online virtual meeting space. And what began as a meeting space for producers to connect with other producers and learn from each other became a place to implement best practices in response to the virus. So getting farm stands online, how to prevent virus spread and still continue to supply customers with local products, and then to explore new markets and aggregation channels. And so the chats are ongoing at this point. They occur basically first thing in the morning, and they provide a space to connect before a speaker dives into a topic-specific presentation. And in the past 6 months, some of the topics we've covered included producer needs during a pandemic, farm to school, rural stress and wellness, cottage food laws. Have reached 70 individuals and on an average of 20 counties. The participants to survey something new or made a new connection and found the food chat useful and would recommend it. Oh dear, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
You're all right. Yeah, doing well.
Okay, I guess my Zoom decided to restart. So I don't even know where, I'm not sure where I exactly.
Are you on the second slide? Do you want to go to the second slide?
We're on the second. The slide that you're on is the one I would like to focus on still.
Okay.
So another area another program that we pursued was these online platform informational interviews, and basically to help prepare producers for unknowns of what farmers markets, farm stands, and other means for getting local food procurement into people's hands. And so sales in the online platforms was one way that we knew was certain. And so we found that resources in this area really lacked experience in sharing from the perspective of the farmer. And so utilizing Zoom, we were able to walk viewers through the process of creating online stores on platforms such as Squarespace, Barn to Door, Weebly, and Brim. And what this did was really open up a collaborative online marketplace for a lot of the small farms who otherwise couldn't afford an online space. And so together promoting each other. So that has continued to just expand and helped meet the need of local food access. Inspiring farmer program, and basically some of the positive impacts of the pandemic really have been sellouts of CSAs or food boxes. And from an extension perspective, we've seen an increase in interest in starting small farm operations. So in response, we've created this 6-week long virtual course, and we've designed it to equip people to pursue their farming dreams successfully. And then you can go to the next slide. So the last program that I want to talk about is a partnership that Extension has with a local nonprofit farm, Cooper Farms. And this summer, to help with the high demand from local food pantries, about 1 acre of the 100-acre property was cultivated with the sole purpose of growing produce in response to the pandemic. So Extension personnel and Master Gardener volunteers grew, the last I heard was 4,200 pounds of food for food banks in critical need. And it also provided community members space to grow fresh food for themselves and their families. So these are just some highlights. I will let Kristen go ahead and talk. And then I think together we can take some questions after that, if that works. Or however you guys would like to do that.
Yes, that sounds great. Yep. You can go to the next slide, please. My name is Kristen Huska, and I am a SNAP Ed supervisor with Nebraska Extension, and I work in Lincoln, so like Katie, in the metro area. And you can go to the next slide, please. I helped focus a group across the state around providing food access resources. Once COVID hit, there was a need to let our population across the state that maybe hadn't been utilizing a lot of food access resources before the pandemic to know what was out there, and then also let people know what Extension had to offer that could really help them in the realm of food assistance and education around those resources. So the first resource that you see here is the SNAP EBT online shopping resource that was created to assist our SNAP EBT users across the state for those online SNAP shopping retailers. So Nebraska had been in a pilot program before COVID-19 to utilize the online SNAP EBT resources, and it was fast-tracked due to COVID. So our users were able to order groceries through Amazon and Walmart to either their homes or for pickup at select locations across the state. There wasn't a lot of education that went along with those programs. It was just mostly announced that this was available. And so these flyers were developed and sent via email, over social media, shared at community partner meetings, local food banks, just to get the word out that these SNAP users were able to order groceries safely while utilizing their EBT benefits. Next slide, please. The other area that we focused on was nutrition education around these food access resources. The first picture that you see there is our food access bingo that was created from a need to reach people that may not be aware of Extension and SNAP Ed resources around the topics of food security. So we really pulled together kind of like double up food bucks information and my plate information. We have a great website called food.unl.edu that has lots of different food tips and food access tips. So all of that was put into this bingo format and sent out statewide as well. And then the second picture there that you see on the slide is the Healthy and Fit Families at the Market Facebook group that was started to sort of drive access to our markets that were still open and taking customers in person. So we really focused on the shop local, eat local aspect, and we marketed this to farmers market managers across the state, and then also just to listservs and Facebook groups that we already had available. It focused on challenges with eating the rainbow, and then weekly healthy activities. And then it will also focus on the holiday market season coming up and be a group that will be able to continue next summer, spring, summer, fall, during market season to get that family engagement through our farmers markets across the state. So next slide, please. Thank you everyone for letting Katie and I present what Nebraska Extension is doing in terms of regional food systems work. And if you have any questions, we'd be able to take some now.
Are there any questions in the chat? Let's see.
Carol, what is it you're cooking? Zucchini bread.
For you.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's pesto in there for lunch.
No, it just smells good.
It does smell really good. I told you I'd make some for you too.
No, it's all right.
But I mean, I will.
For those of you in the listening mode, could you please mute yourself? And Katie, let's move forward. I'll let you know if we get any questions.
Okay. Okie dokie.
Thank you.
Well, let's go on with Londa Nwadike. I'm so sorry. That's a beautiful name. Kansas State University's Pandemic Homesteading Video Series.
Great. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, and it's been really great to hear what other people are doing, to hear all the good work that's being done across the U.S. So yeah, I actually work for both Kansas State University and University of Missouri. I have a joint appointment, but today I'm just talking about Kansas State's efforts. You know, it was interesting. Our local foods team in K-State Extension, and just like the first presenter mentioned, I'm just presenting on behalf of our entire team. I by no means was the only one involved in this, but it was interesting because last year at our K-State Extension annual conference, oops, you can go back a slide, sorry.
Sorry.
At our K-State annual conference in October of 2019, that's when we first started talking about having a local foods team. And we had, so then, you know, over the course of the winter, we kind of were starting the planning of having this local foods transdisciplinary team. And then, you know, in March, January or February, we set the date for our first meeting, and it happened to be on March 24 of 2020. And we all remember what, you know, March was like. So, so it was interesting timing that our local foods team started at the same time as COVID. So far our local foods team has very much been about COVID because, you know, that's when we started. So one of the things that our group decided to do right away was we call them our homesteading, pandemic homesteading 911 videos, because we knew, again, just like other states have talked about, we were getting so many questions about, you know, people wanting to garden more and people wanting to raise chickens that had never done it before. So many people were suddenly homesteading, basic, you know, quote unquote homesteading because of the pandemic, that, you know, we were starting to get these questions. So we decided to develop videos, and you can go ahead and go to the next slide now, Katie. So, so our team put together, and this is a huge effort, not just me by any means, but our team put together 10 different videos, and we call, again, they're called Pandemic Homesteading. They're all about, you know, 2 to 5 minutes, I believe. And so some of the topics included food preservation. That was our most popular one. We put them out once a week from, I can't remember the exact dates, but I think we started in about May. And then we put them out once a week after that. And we, you know, so we tried to get them in logical order. So the first one we put out was about gardening. And then at the end of the season, then we put out one about food preservation so that people could kind of get the whole gamut of information about homesteading. So the videos show like a lay person, you know, just a normal person asking a question and saying, you know, help, I have a 911 pandemic homesteading emergency. And then we show a video of a K-State Extension person providing resources and information about that particular topic. So the numbers there is the page views and the engagements and all those things, but they've been really successful. We did home food preservation, gardening, chickens, gardening with kids. Let me see, shopping at farmers markets. That's one that I did. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide now.
Okay. Sorry, I got kicked out for a second.
Oh, sorry, that happens. So another thing, again, this is similar to what Nebraska talked about too. We had, as with many states, we had such a huge rush of people starting to sell products online because of the pandemic. And I work in food safety as my particular area of expertise. And we knew that a lot of the things that were being bought and sold weren't following regulations and probably were not always following good food safety practices. And we just did not want anybody to get sick from foodborne illness at this time, and wanted to respect the growers that and the producers that are already using, that are following regulations. So K-State Research and Extension worked closely with the Kansas Department of Ag to put on a webinar. So you can see the advertisement for it there, to talk about the regulations for selling foods direct to consumer in Kansas. So it was we had a really good turnout of producers joining the webinar to learn more about. We also talked about marketing in addition to regulations, so that helped as well. Our website's listed there at the bottom. So that's another great thing that our team's been able to do in the past 6 months, is putting together a website with a lot of different resources related to local foods, both for farmers and eaters of foods, and then just for other people, practitioners working in the area of local foods in Kansas as well. So, and some of the information there might be useful to other states also. So, so that's what I have today. So thanks for letting us have the opportunity to share, and for putting this together so we can all learn from each other.
Fantastic. Anybody have any questions for Londa?
There has been a really dynamic discussion in the chat box for the first group of presenters. A question about using local retail business. What do you handle the PIN issue? Because for non-Walmart and non-Amazon stores, any feedback on that from the Nebraska team?
Yes. So with the original period when we created that flyer, I guess we could call it, Walmart was only allowing them to shop online, and then they would go pick up at the store. And so they would enter their PIN at that point when they picked up their order. The Amazon ordering did require the PIN to be entered with the order before it shipped.
How about other local stores taking the EBT? How do you, or how do they handle the PIN issue?
I'm guessing, so the other local store that started doing EBT ordering was also Baker's. And I'm not quite for sure how they did their PIN entering. The smaller stores, we have a co-op store here in Lincoln that also works with our Double Up Food Bucks program, and they did shopping for the SNAP EBT users, and then they could go pick up and pay there, but they didn't do the online ordering. So.
Great. And I see you guys put the contact information to continue the discussion, find out more in the chat box. Appreciate that. I have not seen any question, Katie, for the Kansas State yet, but it might take a minute or two for people to digest, and then
Sure.
if I see something, I'll let you know
Okay.
during the break of the next presenter. All right?
Okay, so we
Thank
will.
you. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes. We will move on to Reagan Emmons, and Brian is going to co-present. Is this correct? Nope, not this one. Okay, sorry about that.
Yes, this one.
Oh, it is this one?
You're
Okay.
right. Mhm.
Okay.
I'm gonna.
I think I
speak
responded
first.
to the wrong person in the chat, so I apologize.
Oh, I'm going to speak first, and then Brian will take it from there.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm here to talk a little bit about farmers markets and our response. I'm just got to find my script here. So I work for Utah State University and Brian works for Penn State Extension. And really, we just wanted to share how we've been able in our respective states to support farmers markets during the pandemic. And for anyone on the call who might not be familiar with farmer market associations, many states in the country have their own farmers market association or a network that support the farmers markets at a statewide level. Extension programs are oftentimes very significant partners to those associations, or they are the association. They play that role. And in Utah and Pennsylvania, that is the case. In either case, Extension is pretty well positioned to support farmers markets, and it turns out well positioned to do so during a pandemic. So here in Utah, we were in the midst of strategic planning to formalize our network that's very new and nascent when it was clear that the pandemic was unraveling things, and we were going to need to figure out if, how, and when markets were even going to be able to open this year. So I'll mention 3 ways that I supported markets during this time. I can only speak anecdotally to the outcomes of those activities. We're actually in the process of evaluating all of the things that we did this year, and so I don't have any data to share, but just some observations that I hope is helpful. So the first thing that I did was I started bringing market managers together on a weekly Zoom call to just talk about everything that was happening and the issues and challenges. And the outcomes that I can see from my end was that it was a huge source of support for the managers. They didn't feel like they were the only ones solving the problem and figuring it out all by themselves. And they often feel very alone as it is. And especially in rural areas. And markets also felt more confident about opening their markets when they were ready to do so. I also helped source PPE. I coordinated donations and brokered some bulk purchases of PPE. We were able to use some state funds from the Department of Health as well as funds from our own FMPP grant to source some items. We supplied markets with handmade masks, hand sanitizer from a Utah-owned brewery, and we created and purchased signage for shoppers at farmers markets. And the outcomes from that was that it saved markets money and time, especially given the situation where markets were facing increased expenses and likely decreased revenue from their market. And lastly, I served as a liaison between the Department of Health and the Department of Ag and Food and the markets. So those 2 agencies created regulations for the markets. I communicated all of those regulations to the markets. I provided the market perspective to those agencies as they were creating regulations. And I also invited personnel from these departments to join a few of our weekly phone calls with the markets. So the outcome from all of that is that markets knew as soon as decisions were made. And sometimes that was a few days before their markets opened. So it was really important that they knew as soon as things were changing. And market managers also had a direct line of communication with these departments if they needed to reach out, like not just during our weekly phone calls, but I would also encourage them, here is their email, here is their phone number, call them. And farmers market managers are very hesitant to do that. It's very intimidating to call up the Department of Ag. So anyway, we just had a really open line of communication, and I think that really helped people know what was going on and to reach out if they had issues. So I will hand it over to Brian, my colleague. And if you could go to the next slide.
My experience was very similar to Reagan's, and in that in Pennsylvania, as soon as the state was shutting down like everybody else in mid-March, the governor had said that farmers markets and on-farm markets were essential businesses. And that was a big advantage in that, you know, guidances were pretty quickly created, and we could communicate that with our market managers through, I have a listserv and then also a mailing list that I was able to get it out through an organization that I had started called PA Farm Markets several years ago. And the plans had been to at some point roll that in and have it become an extension program. And this got kind of fast tracked right away. And so we now have a landing page in our extension team for farm markets. And that allows other extension colleagues then to participate, whereas the standalone organization, they could, but it wasn't really clear. And then it's very similar to Reagan. I started, one of the first things I did was have an open forum, because the same thing, we're trying to get communication out as quickly as possible. A newsletter that was monthly became weekly. It's still weekly because information was changing so fast, or new information was coming out so quickly, and through the forums. So as you can imagine, mid-March, there's not a lot of markets open, but we have a good number of people doing winter markets in Pennsylvania. And they became examples of how they were taking these guidances and adapting their market, and being able to share that with one another has been hugely beneficial. And it also creates this network of I feel like it creates a safe place where people could freely speak about their concerns. There was a lot of concerns in the beginning about a lot of discussion in the beginning about, should I open at all? What was the correct thing to do? Was I putting the community at risk by opening, or am I? It was the best thing to do to be a food service provider for the community and give our farmers the income that they need. And what you're looking at here is we did at some point through this crisis, we did survey the folks who participated in the forum, and this is some of the results that they got back. And like this, 94% indicating information provided helped sustain their market during the crisis. Like Reagan said, they felt like they weren't so alone in this. Once a week, every Wednesday, matter of fact, after this call, we have our weekly forum here, and we're looking at anything from like legal issues. We could bring in those experts. Very fortunate that someone from the Department of Agriculture every week has been on the forum, and I would get emails that would say, hey, I heard this this question come up. I'm going to look into that and get back to that to you. So just like Ray said, there's this clear line of communication. You can go to the next slide. I think it's the last. I'm sorry, that didn't come out so well. Yeah, this is still from the same report, provides valuable information. And it's been an important place for people to share ideas, and also ask the continuous questions, and also the dealing with the biggest thing they were dealing with. I've heard from several managers that if they had a Saturday market, Saturday was the highlight of their week. To be able to go to do their market, and it got turned into a place where they were dreading every Saturday that was coming up. Not so much the extra work that they're not compensated for, and the extra expenses that had to go into that for PPE and the like, and changing the setup of the market, and also but also the pushback from some vendors and from community members about mask wearing and things like that, which is not what they signed up for. And considering that a lot of managers are volunteers. The ones that are compensated are never really compensated enough, and now they've taken this on as well. And at least in the circle of markets in Pennsylvania, we have over 300 farmers markets. So I don't know all of them, but I would say these core groups that I know, and organizations that also run several markets within Pennsylvania. I don't know anybody that threw up their hands and walked away. Everybody's kind of has stayed in it and has worked it through. But they're greatly looking forward to the winter. So from that, also that we were able to create, I had a database of these markets, on-farm markets and public markets, and we were able to create, one of our colleagues is an expert in GIS mapping, and created an interactive map that could both be shared outwardly to the public for people looking to find their farmers markets, because the demand increased so much. And like Greg, a lot of this is anecdotal. It's just talking these market managers and finding out it's pretty universal that attendance is down, but sales are higher. So and that's also true in the grocery industry that I see, is that it's fewer trips, but they're spending more. So the vendors are reporting, at least in the areas in Pennsylvania that I've been looking at, reporting higher sales than previous years. And that seems to still continue. And also, I'm not sure about other areas, but here we have what we would call the September slump after Labor Day. You know, everything changes to a different direction when the schools open and everything, and the market attendance usually drops off. And I'm not hearing, you know, when I check with them, I say, how's the attendance at the market? I say, it's great. It's been fantastic. But also the facts that, you know, people's lives haven't changed that much like they normally do after after Labor Day, you know, and the fact that they were or were not going back to school, and, you know, you're still working from home and things like that. So there still seems to be demand there, especially for direct-to-consumer sales. So I'll just stop it there.
Do we have any questions before moving on? I see there's been things going on in the chat box, so.
It will be helpful for Brian and Reagan to put your contact information, the website, including the mapping tool that you mentioned, in the chat box. So for people who are interested in finding more information, they can go through your online resources. Thank you.
Thank you. I will do that.
Okay, so next we have Sue Beckwith from the Texas Center for Local Foods.
Hello.
Welcome, Sue.
Hi, thank you so much, and thank you for having us. I just want to say again, thank you to Katie and Kathleen for organizing this group and for including nonprofit and community-based organizations. I think it's just, we're all a part of developing the best community food systems we can. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. Our presentation today is going to be about what our immediate response was starting that middle of March, that fateful middle of March that seems like yesterday and 3 years ago at the same time. Our responsibility at the Texas Center for Local Food is statewide, but we're officed in a small town called Elgin, Texas, just outside Austin, about 25 miles east of Austin. A fairly high poverty community for this part of Texas. And, you know, we ran into immediately, of course, the same problems that many other places, especially in the South, did, because our farmers had just begun the harvest that second week of March. So all of a sudden, the ones who sold wholesale didn't have a place to sell their products. Things like zucchini that last, you know, as long as you look at them, and then they're gone like the next day. We also had a lot of, you know, we had the grocery store shelves were cleared. We had a lot of people who were living in poverty who just plain and simple didn't have enough food. We're a small startup kind of organization, and we weren't able to get access to the larger grant funds that the urban areas and the large food banks and so forth were getting at that time. So what we did was we put together a program with the Common Market out of Houston, which is about 170 miles from us, to have their farmers pivot from wholesale to weekly veggie boxes. And we worked with our community and put them up for sale. We did a Shopify store in about 2 days, and the community in Elgin really pulled together to buy those boxes for I think they were $32 a piece. And then what we were able to do is take that revenue, and for every 10 that we sold, we donated one through our partnership with the local community health clinic to a family who had a child with a diet-related illness, who wasn't going to be able to eat and stay healthy, just, you know, whatever happened to be left at the grocery store. So that was really the core of kind of what the problem was. People needed food, farmers needed to sell their stuff. And you could see on the slide, it really, the community pulled together and it worked out really well. In a matter of days, we were up and running. We sold our first veggie box that third week of March, and we did curbside deliveries for 11 weeks. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. These slides will be sent out, so I'm not gonna go through everything on them. Because we're the local and regional community food systems group, I wanted to make sure and include this slide for you. The green are the organizations that really stepped up immediately. There's a group called you can see it on the right down there, the Local Food Action Team. And that group just really pulled together immediately, and we pulled together a quick meeting. And the question before us was, what can we do to feed our community and to support the farmers in our area? And that's really what got the ball rolling on all of this. You notice the entities without any color, with the white, weren't really that involved. And I think had some of those, particularly the local governments, been more involved, maybe we'd have been a little more effective. It might have slowed us down though, right? Because we had a Shopify store up, we're selling in 48 hours from the time that we started. The local restaurant and catering company, Firewall Catering, downtown on Main Street, set us up. We used their curbside, we used their cooler, made the arrangements with Common Market quickly. They had 100 box a week minimum. We sold totally 1,117 boxes delivered and donated in the 11 weeks. We had 400 customers buy boxes. Many bought them regularly, repeatedly, including our extension agent. I just want to say she lives about 40 miles from us, and she would come in and buy 6 or 7 and bring them out to then her community. And we had people come from Austin, the same thing, who bought boxes. Some of their neighbors paid for it, some of their neighbors didn't. One of the things that I think is unique about our program, and I hope it isn't, but I got quite a few calls from folks wanting to donate, wanting to buy a box, local people wanting to buy a box and then donate it, have us donate it. And we actually told them no. And what we asked them to do was, you come in and you buy the box and you pick up the box and you bring the box to someone that you know, or someone through your church or your community who needs it. And people did that. And that we felt like supports our values of really pushing out bonding, which, crises are really good times for that. That's a silver lining, and we were really able to do that. One woman bought a box every week for her dog sitter because she wasn't going to work, didn't need her dog sitter, so she bought her a box every single week. Others bought boxes for their housekeepers, and just all kinds of generosity like that just really came out. 27 volunteers worked on our project for the 11 weeks that we did. That included distributions that we did as a follow-up to at the schools, at the Elgin schools. And we had 11 key partners, not the least of which was the Common Market Texas, and we were very fortunate to have them because they already had the network of farmers. We didn't have to develop that. We didn't have to figure out a way to shift from wholesale. They were doing that part. So it was just sort of like everything we see when we read about partnerships, it all just really came together and came true for us and for this community. So I think there's just one more slide about the school piece of this.
Yeah, we have about 1 minute.
Yeah, so again, we coupled this, and I can send out the Facebook link with our after school program that we run in the schools. We provided veggie boxes to the schools, and then the students cooked at home with their families and posted those videos and photos on their school Facebook group. So these are just some images of the kids really making use of those local vegetables in what we would call, farm to school to home to mouth. For you nutritionists out there, just making sure that we could make that bottom line happen. So it wouldn't have happened without the community partnerships. And there's a full report in incredible detail on our website if anyone's interested in kind of what are the ingredients to replicate something like this, especially in a small town. We're about 10,000 people here. So I'm happy to answer any questions. And again, thanks for having us.
Thank you, Sue. Anyone have any questions? Okay, well, we'll go ahead and move along. Next, we have Laura Laufer from North Carolina State University. Welcome, Laura. I thought, are you there? Is Laura not there? Okay, well, Kirsten, are you ready? We can come back to Laura. Can y'all hear me?
Let's move on to Kristen.
Kirsten, are you
I
ready,
can go
Kirsten?
now if you want to.
Yes, please.
Can you move the slides up?
Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry. There we go.
Okay, all right. Hi, everybody. My name is Kirsten Conrad, and can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Katie, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, yes.
All right, great. I'm from Virginia, and my area of expertise is horticulture. I'm an A&R agent in Ironton County in the city of Alexandria, and we have a small part of our urban agriculture outreach effort that we call Seed Project. It's been going on for a number of years. I'd like to tell you about because I think it's something that you can replicate wherever you are. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. In the beginning, the need for seeds was a brainstorm that we had to try to offer people that attended our classes a little bit of a benefit, get them something started, you know, something to start with. And since we spoke a lot about how to start seeds and how to start your vegetable garden and what to grow, this is something that we thought would be a fun thing to attract people to our classes. But they also turned out to be a huge draw at our plant clinics that we hold for people asking for advice from the public. We also use them in our office to increase the awareness of extension, the location of our extension offices. We have a little joke that extension is the best kept secret in town. But from 2012 to 2014, there was an organization called America the Beautiful Foundation that operated out of Washington, D.C. And they had a warehouse at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, and we got involved with volunteering to help them sort their seeds out. And these were huge, huge bins of seeds that were needed to be divided up into herbs, flowers, and vegetables. This organization would then package up online requests that sent them out to schools and to community gardens and to people who requested them online. And in 2014, that program ended. And we went, oh no, where are we going to get our seeds from? We were tremendous beneficiaries of our work there. And in 2014, we started recruiting our own seed sources and cultivating our own seed sources so that we could do our own operation. And from 2014 to 2019, we've had one volunteer, a master gardener, who has solicited seed donations from about a dozen different companies, the most important of which is Lake Valley Seed. And of course, in 2020, the Seed Project was born because all of a sudden we had no access to our seeds in our offices. And we can go on to the next slide and I'll tell you about it. In 2020, at the end of March, our offices were shut down. Not only could we not go to our office or to operate out of those spaces, all of our plant clinics were shut down, all of our public education in-person classes were shut down, and of course, all of our seeds were locked up in our office building. And we finagled a special visit to extract those seeds from our office, and we were able to extract about 11 cartons of boxes of seeds, like the one that Neil is holding in the picture on the right. Those big boxes came from Lake Valley, and we had about 10 or 12 other suppliers, but all of them together didn't add up to the 11 boxes, or even one of those boxes that Lake Valley sends us. Initially, we did 6 community garden events where I wrote to the community garden organizers and said, hey, I'm going to come set up seeds for your gardeners. And we had volunteers that would sit out in the parking lot at my house and help sort seeds. And it was very definitely a team effort all the way from, even from the very beginning, because it took an army to remove the seeds from the Farrington Community Center. Next slide. Okay, so eventually, very quickly, we had an online request form that our administrator developed. And we had one coordinator that was based on our neighborhood outreach program who organized 3 neighborhood distribution points, 2 in Arlington, 1 in Alexandria. And people who would call in and request seeds were moved to this online request form. And then those requests were tabulated and sent out to the individuals who they were, the distribution points where they were closest to. Not only did we provide seeds, we also provided charts on when to start different kinds of vegetables, how-to forms on different kind of cultural needs of the various crops. And people felt very, very well supported. Next, please. So what just happened? You know, we estimate that we served about 1,200 families or individuals through the months that we operated this program. We served, in normal years, we serve a number of schools because all the schools have got gardens, and many of those gardens are supported by volunteers that know about our resources. So they come to us for classes, for education, for free seeds, soil tests, and much else. But based on the amount of seeds that we currently have left over, we estimate that about 10,000 seed packets were given out to various individuals. And we hope that some of them actually got planted. They were so popular that gardeners started giving out their own plants to some of the people that were coming by through their neighborhoods. And of course, they left love letters too. Look at some of these love letters, they're amazing. I love fresh green beans and carrots. These were the kids writing, going, wow, your garden is so beautiful. Look what I grew with your seeds that you gave me. It was so wonderful. So another little thing that was very interesting about this year, we do a lot of public education in our program. We have in-person classes traditionally. And in fact, prior to April of this year, we had never done an online class before. But we immediately transitioned to Zoom classes. And instead of having what we considered a big crowd at an in-person class of being 30, 25 people, we are now having 180 people, 160 people, 200 people for our public education classes. And all of these classes are being, these publicity and the organization of these classes are being handled by our local master gardeners and advertised on their website, which is mgnv.org, mastergardeners@northernvirginia.org. If you go there, I will put the website in the chat box because I think what they're doing is just amazing. This is an award-winning website, and they have created a virtual classroom tab where you can not only see what upcoming classes are coming up, but also you can access the stored recorded versions of our classes. Finally, one of the things that has been developing since 2008 has been our Urban Agriculture Month programs. And I started in this job in 2007. And about 2014, we had our first Urban Agriculture Month collection of events. And there has been different forms in different years. This year, it's a huge event with about 30 different online classes. Urban Agriculture Month in Arlington has its own website, and it's a major partnership with the Friends of Urban Agriculture. And the Friends of Urban Agriculture are a new organization that is this year partnering with Extension to do the Victory Gardens project. And this project was partly born out of the fact that the schools were completely closed and all these gardens that had previously been tended by the kids, the teachers, the volunteers, were essentially going in need of assistance. And they represented potentially huge opportunities for producing food, for the food bank. So We organized a response to put volunteers into those gardens. And so far, so good. They produced about 2,000 pounds of food from about 5 very small gardens at 5 local schools. Next slide, please.
Oh, that was it.
And it's slides. Okay, go back. I just want to tell you that it can be done. One of the really kind of cool things is the challenges for next year is that we've received a notification from Lake Valley that they are no longer going to supply us with the kinds of seeds that we've had in the past. They're going to be working with another distributor. So that's going to be a challenging new thing for us. And if anybody would like detailed information about Urban Agriculture Month, about the Victory Gardens project, or about the seed project, I will put my contact information in the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kirsten. We're going to go ahead and, Laura, are you here? I saw her come back in.
Yes, I'm here.
Ah, you want to present now?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Is that it? There it is. Okay.
Hey, everybody. My name's Laura Lawfer. I work in southwestern North Carolina. I work for the Center for Environmental Farming Systems at NC State University with North Carolina Cooperative Extension. We are a 3-year project. Next slide. With, oh, sorry. I really had to condense this presentation, so I took out our descriptor slide, but we're a 3-year project funded by the Appalachian Regional Commission and Cherokee Preservation Foundation and NC State. And we've been working in these 7 counties in North Carolina and in the pointy end of North Carolina, working to help develop the supply chain. And when COVID hit, we had to make some pivots, and our funder allowed us to support, move some funding around to support aggregators. And so that's what this brief presentation is about 3 different aggregators that we worked with to help them survive and thrive through COVID. And so the first one is Yonder Farmers Market in Franklin, North Carolina, which is Macon County. And they had a farm to table restaurant that had to close overnight. And instead of just closing, they tweaked their square that they were using in the store for purchases and started an online grocery. And so it's kind of a hybrid CSA where folks can look at this online order form and order once a week and come and pick up a box. This picture on the left is a picture of their new grocery store. We were able to help them get some new refrigeration to store all these new products that they're getting. And so now they do have a bit of a storefront. And so they're opening an in-person grocery, but they will continue this /CSA pickup model. They are offering SNAP and EBT. We're really excited about that. And they want to be a Western regional distributor. So this is how Yonder pivoted. So next slide. Guadalupe Restaurant is another story of a unique pivot. They added grocery to their restaurant. On March 14th, they closed at 5 o'clock, and they're really a downtown Sylvan, North Carolina institution. And, you know, this is where families come and take their kids for birthdays, and it's just a real community center. And so they wanted to figure out how they could continue to serve their community, help their employees, and also support consumers in the region. So they were already sourcing plenty of local products from local farmers. And what they did was they started bringing in those products to sell for their takeout service. So they stopped their seated service completely, and they still they're not going for the 50% occupancy even now in September. But when you go to pick up your takeout order, they have a board of products, and you can kind of see that that chalkboard there in the picture, where you can pick up cheese and meat and beer and wine and bread and locally roasted coffee. And so one of the ways that we've supported them, they are expanding their cooling storage area, and they have found a place in their basement where they're going to put in a walk-in cooler. And so we're helping finance that. And they do anticipate continuing this grocery store part of what they're doing. Okay, next slide. My third pivot is Darnell Farms. This is a very large farm stand and agritourism venture in Bryson City, North Carolina, which is in Swain County. And they changed their farm stand. You can see their picture of their farm stand up there in that top right corner, to drive-through only. And so again, overnight they pivoted and created an online ordering system where you can order what you want from the farm stand and drive through. You tell them your name and they come and they deliver your product. You've already purchased it, and then you keep going. And so they are also working with SNAP EBT and hoping to add WIC. And they are sourcing all types of products, meats and dairy and veg. And now they are transitioning yet again, offering a more traditional CSA option with a keto, paleo, and vegetarian options. They bought a fleet of vans. They've really done an amazing job. They are an agritourism location, and I have just saw recently where they're allowing folks to register families to come and do a hayride. And so you're not joining a hayride with other families, but you're still able to keep COVID safe by having your pod of people do the hayrides and go and pick the pumpkins. So next slide. So each of these are hyperlinks where you can go and visit. And I do have a longer presentation that goes into a lot more details about what these three folks are doing. But I did want to participate in this today and just let y'all know what's happening in Southwestern North Carolina, that we have some really unique things happening that are helping grow businesses, support local farmers, and helping consumers stay in touch with direct purchase of local products. So thank you so much. I appreciate the invitation, Katie.
Thank you, Laura. I'm going to go ahead and advance the slide and let Jeff O'Hara from AMS start presenting. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. I just wanted to say that to Kirsten Conrad that was great. I happen to live in Alexandria, Virginia, and volunteer at the Delray Farmers Market. So love hearing what you're up to, and maybe we can connect afterwards. This project, again, I think we've heard some projects here of people working with groups, and this was also a project I'm going to present was developed with a number of organizations working on farm to institution projects throughout the United States. It was with University of Kentucky as a cooperator, and it involved Farm to Institution New England, Michigan State, Center for Good Food Purchasing, Health Without Harm, National School Food Network, CHIP, Real Food Generation, and USDA. And really what we're driving towards is, how to, develop reporting measures for farm to institution purchases. And so the key issue here is that farm to institution isn't, as many of you know, farm to institution isn't really exactly the way these transactions occur in practice. It's not farmers selling to schools and hospitals and colleges and senior care centers. It's really farms selling to intermediaries who are in turn selling to schools, hospitals, colleges. And because there's intermediaries here, that means that we need to have tracking. That means there's tracking systems that need to occur in order for institutions to then say, I bought such and such a product. and it came from, you know, a farm within my region that was owned by maybe a local or a locally owned business. There has to be a way of keeping track of the product attributes throughout the supply chain. We began this project prior to COVID. COVID obviously was a curveball, but at the same time, I think in many ways, COVID, you know, has exemplified and amplified the importance of tracking systems for foods. You know, I see you know, three different ways. One is that, you know, during the pandemic, consumers are still interested in buying local. That continues to be a top attribute that consumers are searching for, are local products. Second comment is that, you know, during recessions, we saw in the Great Recession that there was a real interest in local policymakers for local sourcing. Likely that will continue to be a really high priority, particularly if we do go into a recession, that people are going to want to see local purchases. And then a third thing is for you know, that there's just an overall interest in improving the traceability of food for pandemic related reasons, but just that there overall we need to develop a safer food system, and that includes better tracking systems. And so really what these organizations have come together to do, and what I'm going to present on briefly, is to develop a standard set of protocols for trying to measure what the farm impacts are, you know, for institutions, and developing a standardized set of metrics hopefully makes it easier for distributors to develop these metrics. It reduces their transaction costs, and it allows, you know, different institutions across different sectors and across different regions to aggregate and scale up and to compare impacts. So next slide, please. So I know what this project was about is to create, you know, is to look at the different standards that are out there. You know, National Farm to School Network had some standards, and Real Food Generation has some standards, and other organizations have standards, including the Center for Good Food Purchasing, and to try to, you know, consolidate what those standards are so that different people aren't going to distributors and asking them to report different metrics. We've presented some metrics, and now we've created a website, which we'll talk about in a moment, which has tools and resources out for them, and we're looking for, you know, pilot organizations that want to give us feedback on them and tell us whether they think they're practical and useful. Next slide, please. So, I mean, I think our selling point, or what we're trying to convey, is that, you know, being able to track local food purchase, you know, it makes it we can have consistent systems for saying what does and does not count. It's also, our project did not try to attempt to define what good food was or what real food was. You know, it's essentially, it's values neutral in that sense. And we're letting, you know, really wanting people to use their own definition of local. We don't have a standardized definition for local, you know, letting people use their own definition for local, but then essentially tracking product attributes. And that allows us to track progress over time, and then being able to measure what institutional purchases are could hopefully lead to more support for these programs. Next slide, please. The intuition is that, you know, if you buy, let's say, a bag of carrots, that's going to have that bag of carrots will have a bunch of attributes associated with the organization from which you bought it from. So, did you buy it from a locally owned farm? Would you buy it from, you know, a non-local organization? What was were there ingredients? If you bought a product with ingredients, were the ingredients local, or was it just buying a local product that was produced by a manufacturer? Can you trace back the product to, you know, the original farm from which you got the ingredients? And what were the product types and what were the market channels that you bought it from? So next slide, please. These are just kind of some examples of what we're talking about. So suppose you're an institution and you're buying, you know, meats aggregated from local farms that were identified by a locally owned meat food hub. And well, this would be, you're buying the product from an independent business. That's what the purple bar says. Then the not minority owned, not women owned, farm impact is all, and that essentially means that all of the ingredients that you buy are also locally sourced. Farm identity, yes, means that I can identify the farms from which I bought it from. Product type, MMP, stands for meat and poultry, and the market channel I use is a distributor. So it's essentially a classification scheme. If you can, maybe one more example, real quick, if I have an extra minute. Next slide, please. And then here's another example. So institutions buying broccoli soup, produced locally, and the broccoli is purchased from specific local farms, and it is the only locally sourced ingredient. So again, it's the purple box indicates an independent business. In this example that we're using, it's a women-owned business. So you could track that. Farm impact is some because there's some ingredients that are local, some are not. I can track it back to the original farm, which is the blue yes. it's an entree. That's the type of food product that you purchase, and again, you bought it from a distributor. So that's it seems simple, but then this is something that we were asking people to do across many all our products, and so it would be a big leap forward. So final slide, please. We have a website that we've created, ftimetrics.localfoodeconomics.com. And on the website, there's some Excel sheets, a video tutorial, some documentation, and maybe a more elaborate explanation of the rationale behind what we chose and what we've done. Really what we're wanting to make, I think why it's really helpful for extension people to be aware of it is really want to get feedback on it. We'd love to see what people think of it. It is a pilot. They haven't really been ground truth yet. So I think we're really hoping to see if we can make some headway at measuring institutional markets. They're in a free fall right now with schools and colleges, kind of on the brink, in terms of being able to open. So let's really try to put some numbers around how that's impacting local farms and how that's impacting local businesses. So that wraps up my remarks.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Okay. Kathleen wants to say some things before we have a discussion and before we start losing people. So Kathleen, are you ready?
Well, you don't need to show my slide. Let's just do it this way.
Okay.
I like this beautiful vegetable. Jeff's slide looks much better than mine. And a lot of people don't know that Jeff O'Hare works for USDA AMS, and he forgot to introduce himself. So that's why we're saving his presentation at the very end, because many of you on the call probably received or applied for some kind of funding from USDA AMS, the local food promotional program, farm to school promotional programs. There's a whole variety of different local food grant opportunities supported by USDA AMS. And we really appreciate Jeff takes time to support us in this presentation. To finish and to open up for open forum dialogue is to remind everybody that the e-extension is supported by grants and volunteers like me and Katie. We both work. Well, I do pay Katie from my grant, but Katie asked me, say, Kathleen, how come nobody else support me? Well, that's a good question. So I'm here to encourage everybody next time when you all put a grant together, put some support for Katie. So she will continue to help us to manage the website, do the connection, the community forum, but she also works with all kinds of networks to bring us together. You see a lot of news release, listserv, announcement, that all relies on Katie's effort. So just a simple reminder to everybody, if you are in the process or considering writing for future grants, please feel free to reach out to us. I usually provide a letter of support if you can incorporate e-extension into your grant to provide any service, support any function for the state level, regional level, county level, or national level. E-extension is here to support everybody. So with that said, anybody would like to open your mic and say anything about your local specific best practice or anything that you have experienced, you like to share it with everybody? This is your time. Anybody would like to say something about your program? Now you all don't jump in at one time, okay? So give us a sign that you like to talk. Anybody has any information to share about how your local government programs, organizations handling the COVID-19?
This is Sue Beckwith from Texas. I have a quick question. I guess the videos that the different presenters talked about, they're all generally available for anyone to use anywhere. So maybe we could include some of them in our after school program just by linking to them on YouTube or wherever they are. That's cool.
I'm gonna.
Kristen, you're the one with the video?
This is Kirsten, and I'm going to answer to Sue that we also have quite a bit of cross programming with 4-H. And there is a wonderful presentation that was done on starting with salsa garden, for instance, that's available on the Master Gardens of Northern Virginia website that I put into my chat box earlier. And if you can't find it, just drop me a line, and I'll make sure you get it. But there are lots of other resources that we have for children at the local foods level.
Terrific. Thank you, Kirsten.
And Londa also responded yes. She said definitely.
I just want to say on a personal level that I have been able to participate in more trainings since COVID started because of everything moving to the online platform now. I took a soil workshop from an extension office that was like 4 states away, and it was relevant and important and something that, you know, I might not have otherwise been able to participate in. So it's been wonderful. I've been taking classes from all over the country, and it's the new normal, I think. So I'm grateful for that, at least.